So, hi everyone, and welcome to another video of Race to the White House Election Forecast 2024. On this video, we're going to take a look at one of the main pillars of the model, and we're going to see how the model works, taking into account data from voting trends and patterns in all the 50 states. So, this is the first measure of how the election is gonna fold out in November, because it takes into account the inherent voting trends in every state. So what the model does in this part of the model, here we got a preview. In this preview, in this spreadsheet, is of course sum up the three main features that are characteristic of this part of the model, which are state swing, and then state swing compared to the nation, and then state gap in comparison to the nation. So we'll go to that later. So first of all, the first indicator, as you can see right now here, is the state swing. So state swing is something that is really easy to understand. We're just talking about how states are gonna shift, all right? To understand how states are going to shift, we're going to fit a regression, of course. So we need to find some coefficients, fit some regression, doing some statistics and probabilities right here. I spare you the details, so I'm not going to bother you with telling you how the details, but as you can see here, we have the coefficients that are fit for regressions, and then we take into account how states shifted in row numbers from 2008 to 2020 to 2012, then from 2012 to 2016, and then to 2016 to 2020, as you can see right here in the map. As you can see right here in the map, you can see, for example, states like, for example, Iowa, the states are shifting heavily from 2008 to 2020. So we expect them states, and we factor in how the state shifted and so how they may shift in the future. So we do fit a regression, and we came up with a projected row swing. Then here there is some math. Again, I'm not going to bother you with the details. The fact is that the model really prevents a state from shifting too much. So for the model does right here, as you see, the difference from the row swing and the actual swing in 2024 is that states like, for example, Iowa, for example, Maine, 2nd Congressional District, like Ohio, those are states shifting heavily from 2008 to 2020, and again from 2012 to 2020. So it would be foolish to actually think that those states can actually shift even more than what they already done. All right, so the model really takes into account that those states may have reached a kind of saturation point. So there is this kind of bump, right? The shift in those states is muffled. So as you can see here, for example, in the state of Iowa, the row swing was 4.9 and the adjusted swing is projected at 4.5. So there is this kind of mathematical adjustment. So now here we can get into a little bit of the gist of the model. That is the comparison shift compared to the nation. All right. So what you can see right now, first of all, we talked about row numbers. Now we're going to talk about relative numbers. What I understand here, what I mean here is that we need to take into account how states voted compared to the nation. For example, in 2020, the nation voted 4.5 in favor of Democratic candidate Joe Biden. And for example, you can see right here, the state of Georgia voted just 0.2 points in favor of Biden. So if we take a look at the state of Georgia, in this section of the model, we're gonna say that the state of Georgia voted actually 4.3 points to the right of the nation, because the margin again is closer than it was in the nation. So what we need basically to do mathematically is 4.5 minus 0.2. So we need to take into account those parameters for every single state. So what we're going to do here is to understand how single states are going to vote compared to the nation. And again, to understand this, we need to take a look at historical elections, and we understand in the past election how states have voted compared to the nation. So we need to, again, right here, come up with this 2024 shift to the nation, and the margin to the nation. So as you can see right here, that is factored in those kind of tables. So the really important thing that I need to understand right now is how states are going to shift, just taking into account the shift of the nation. So basically, the nation we start from, again, I talked about it in previous videos, Bayesian priors. All right, Bayesian priors. So we start with in this particular case with an assumption, and the assumption is the projected national popular vote. All right, so we got the national popular vote. Then we factor in some statistics. We take polling average, we take polling error average, and then we fit a probability distribution to understand the prior electoral national popular vote margin. When we have the national popular vote margin, what we're going to do is to understand how states have voted compared to the nation. And so we're going to take a look very closely at how those states are going to shift in 2024 compared to the nation. All right, so the question is really, for example, the state of Alabama. All right, if the nation is going to shift a certain amount of points to the right, and it will do most certainly in 2024, how the state is going to shift compared to the nation. So we need, again, to understand how it voted compared to the nation. And for example, we came up with a solution here in the state that the state of Alabama is going to shift, for example, 1.14 points to the right of the nation in 2024. In the state of Arizona, for example, we have here a 3.2 shift to the nation. So basically it means that we look at the shift compared to the nation. If the nation is going to shift, let's say, 1 point to the right from 2020 to 2024, the state of Arizona is going to shift 1 point plus, again, 3.2. And this is the second main pillar of our model. The third and final prediction, the final model, the first and final tool that we're going to use to make a prediction here is actually a gap to the nation. So as to gap to the nation, we mean the shift in the shift to the nation. So let's take, for example, let's say a certain state, all right? Let's say that a certain state voted in 2016 1 point to the right of the nation, and in 2020 2 points to the right of the nation. So in this case, it means that from 2016 to 2020, the state has a positive shift on 1 point in favor, for example, of Republicans to the right of the nation, which means that the state is actually trending to the right of the nation, not only in the simple raw numbers compared to the nation, but also in the shift to the nation. So think of it in mathematical way as a kind of second derivative. So we're gonna the change in the change of a state behavior compared to the nation. This is to account for even more specificity, for even more accuracy in the model. So we're going to take a look here, and we have again other parameters right here. I want to really annoy you with all those math right here, but what we need to do again is fit in some regression and to understand how states will vote in 2024 compared to the nation, taking into account their change when it comes to voting in trend of to voting with respect to the nation. This is of course very important because we have some states, for example states like Arizona and Georgia, that are really fast growing, and so if we took into account only this factor, so 2024 state shift to 2020, that only fits regressions for raw numbers of votes compared to the nation without taking into account the change in the shift to the nation, we would have really mischaracterizing the race, right? We would have in Arizona, for example, a big 4 point advantage for Republicans, which is an outlier, which is something not really accurate, which is made up for again by this margin right here, for example, in 2024 gap to the nation, which is the third parameter, the one I'm talking about. We have a 1.4, so which means that really the parameters work, for example, here in Arizona. Then to finish with, I want to tell you a little something about this elasticity score and gap elasticity score. These are scores that are applied in every single of those three pillars of this kind of section of the model, in every single one, and those are really important because they are really inherently predictive of the election system in America. All right. The fact is that, of course, we don't elect the president by a popular vote. We have the electoral college votes, of course. And so the main question, again, if you're looking at it in a Bayesian statistic model, which kind of this resembles. So we're talking about again Bayesian priors, and when our priors is the national popular environment, our real question is considering, for example, in this case, all right, in this case we have all polls that have Harris, for example, between 2 and 3 points, with an advantage of between 2 and 3 points to really President Trump. So we're talking about a nation shift that is going to be between 1.5 and 2.5 to the right from 2020. So it means that Trump will gain some votes. So the big question is, where are those votes coming from? All right, this is all the question that we're gonna answer to find out how the Electoral College will look like in 2024. So to understand this, I developed two elasticity scores. So elasticity score, the really normal elasticity score and the gap elasticity score. Those elasticity scores are applied. The first one, the elasticity score, the normal elasticity score, we applied it here in the first and second pillar. So when we're talking about the gap compared to the nation in 2024, if we have a shift to the nation, again, for example, here in Arizona, just to take into account, we have a 3.2 shift to the nation. When we're going to take a look at how the nation is going to shift, we do not take the raw number of the shift in the nation. We're going to multiply the nation shift, for example, let's say 1.5 or 2.5. It depends on actually the polling average. So at the moment, it's between 1.5 to 2.5. We're going to multiply it by the elasticity score, and then the number that we get, we're going to add up to this number, all right? And so it gets here to 4.57. What does it mean? It really means that there are states that are really elastic. It means that if the nation shifts, they shift a lot, all right? So they really follow the nation flow. There are other states that aren't really bothered by what the nation does, all right? Those states really tend to have a kind of, a really isolated trend. And one of those states is Arizona, because the city score goes from 0.5 to 1.5 or 0.7, all right? So this is really low city score, which means that the state of Arizona, and if you think of it politically, it makes sense because it's really a fast-growing state with growing population areas, new people coming in. It means that the trend in the nation doesn't have that effect that may have, for example, in other states. For example, in 1.0 state, so perfectly in line with the nation, is the Nebraska 3rd Congressional District, for example. But, for example, in the state of Arizona, we're talking about this. And this is for what concerns the national, the first two pillars. We basically did the same thing with the gap elasticity score. So we're talking about, again, the change in the shift to the nation. So there are states that if the nation is going to shift heavily in favor of either party, those states are going to increase their shift to the nation. For example, they'll vote with higher margin, with higher difference compared to the nation. For example, let's say that the nation shifts again 2 points to the right of the nation. If a state has a high elasticity score, it means that it votes to the right of the nation with a bigger margin in 2024 than in 2020. Again, if the gap elasticity score, for example, in the case of Arizona, is not that high, 0.7 again, it means that Arizona more or less is going to vote with the same margin compared to the nation. So it means that if Arizona voted around 4 points to the right of the nation in 2024, in 2020, excuse me, there's not going to be a lot of change in that number in 2024. So we're talking about those kind of things, really, when we're talking about those gap elasticity score. And in fact, the Arizona gap to the nation projected margin is 1.4. Of course, this is need to take into account other factors. This part of the model is just based on really fundamental voting trends and patterns. for example, like here in Arizona, you have that the first pillar, so the row shift gives Arizona around a 5 point lead for Democrats, and those two other indicators are more favorable for Republicans. And we have an estimated margin here, and then we also have a probability associated with those margins here. That is really just one of the big parts that the model takes into account. In the next few videos, we're going to take a look at other indicators. We will talk about polls, so polling averages, how polls are really right, whether they're right or wrong, how they affect the state of the race. Then we're going to take a look at third-party performance that may have a kind of really big importance in the state. In particular, if you're talking about here, we have many states that are really within 1 point according to this part of the model. So we're talking about even half a point or just less than half a point may make a difference. And then we're talking about turnout. I hope I didn't bother you too much with math details. If you're interested, you can write in the comment and I'll be happy to provide you again mathematical explanation of all those numbers you can see. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the page, and stay tuned for next update, because in a few days I'm gonna update my model with new polling averages, and I'll be making a new video that we're gonna make a projection again, mid-September projection, full projection on the White House, race to the White House. See you next time on Race to the White House Election Forecast 2024.